Hello and welcome back. Today I have another mouse review for you guys. This time around it's the PWNAGE Ultra Custom Wireless Gaming Mouse. I've been using this as my daily driver for some time now and I'm really digging it. Let's get on with the review. I have been using the mouse now for a little over 2 weeks, and in that time I can confidently say that this is a great entry into the wireless arena. This being my first ergonomic mouse, I thought it would feel strange in the hand just by the looks of it, but instead it felt natural and comfortable almost instantly with no adjustment period. The swappable parts makes it stand out from other wireless mouse and has great build quality to go along with it. I did encounter a small issue with my left click, but we'll talk about that later on. The performance is top notch and this may just be the lightest wireless gaming mouse currently on the market. The Ultra Custom is available in two base colors, black or white. I bought my white copy from their second batch through their Indiegogo page and received it about 8 days later. PWNAGE now has the option of buying directly from their site as well. The base, side buttons, scroll wheel, and its housing along with the DPI housing, charging cable, and internals are all color matched depending on which base color you get. I thought this was pretty neat. The entire body is composed of a flat white plastic with no rubber to be found anywhere except on the scroll wheel. For some, this may mean having a slippery mouse when your hand starts to sweat. One of the biggest selling points of the mouse is the visual customization. This comes by way of a top shell, main button shell, and DPI button that can be swapped out with different shells and buttons of various colors that PWNAGE provides. The shell is attached by using magnets built into the inner frame of the mouse. This makes swapping out for different colored shells very easy and intuitive and requires no tools. You can even buy extra shells through the PWNAGE website and, if you're the adventurous type, paint or design them yourself to create a unique color or design. The DPI button is made of soft rubber and can also be customized with various color options and comes in two different heights, 3mm and 5mm. I was hoping that the side buttons would also be magnetic and customizable, but they aren't unfortunately. PWNAGE kinda makes up for this by selling rubber side grips if you want that little bit of extra control. Now let's talk about the design, but before we go any further and because it's a subjective topic, I just want to put a disclaimer out there and say that I am super picky when it comes to visual design, and it is a big factor for me personally when buying many things, mice included. At first glance, you'll most likely notice one of two things, the honeycomb structure throughout the body and the asymmetrical shape due to it being an ergonomic mouse. It's important to note that PWNAGE does include a solid shell cover in the box, in the event that you don't care too much for the honeycomb design. Speaking of which, the honeycomb design can be a double-edged sword, being that it's great for keeping your hands cool, but if you sweat a lot, it can also lead to nasty gunk buildup over time. Because of the holes, if you eat food at your desk, you may eventually get some crumbs that make its way inside the mouse from time to time. Let's not even mention spilling liquids near it, because that's probably going to end poorly. Of course, you can always switch over to the solid shell, but then the sides are still exposed, so you're really not solving much there. In either case, you'll want to stay consistent with keeping the mouse clean and free of debris. You won't find any futuristic or sharp lines similar to those found on the G903 anywhere on the Ultra Custom. To me, the design gives off a bulbous, almost bloated appearance. Looking at it from the top, you'll notice how instead of following the lines coming from the back and angling inwards, the mouse flares out slightly, giving the corners a rounded look. From the front, the first thing you see is a USB-C port. I'm glad that PWNAGE went with this instead of the outdated micro USB. I do have to be picky about the way the port looks though. Did they have to make it so pronounced? I mean, it's probably designed this way for a reason, but they could have at least made it flush with the body. Is it a pretty mouse? No, not to me. But it doesn't need to be when it can perform as well as it does. Plus, you don't need a good looking mouse to do well in the game. Of course, all of this is completely subjective, and you may like it, but I'm not a fan of the design. As someone with a small to medium sized hand that uses a claw and sometimes relaxed claw grip, the mouse feels great in the hand and I am able to use it for many hours without feeling any discomfort whatsoever. I feel like all grip styles are viable with this shape and will be comfortable no matter which one you use. Overall, the build quality is impressive and generally solid considering half the mouse is swappable. There is some slight flexing and the occasional creaking that seems to come from the top shell, but you have to deliberately try to make it happen, and even so it's not something you'll notice when gaming. The main click buttons have a subtle groove that guide your finger towards the inside and near the scroll wheel. You won't have any issues with your fingers falling off the sides, like with some mice, whose buttons slope downward. The main clicks are hot swappable just like the top shell, and you also get an extra one in the box, which in my case was a black one because I got the white base. The scroll wheel itself is a fairly standard one with a notched rubber ring for grip with well-defined steps. The wheel click was a little stiff at first, but after a couple of days, it now feels fine. There is one RGB zone that will turn on when the mouse is charging and will change color depending on the stage of charging, from red to green. The wheel will also change colors, which you can customize as you switch between DPI levels, and will remain on at all times unless disabled in the settings. Right above the scroll wheel, you'll find the rubber DPI button. Interestingly, the entire housing is the button itself, with the rubber nub just being there to fill a gap. I wonder if PWNAGE could have shaved another gram or two by replacing this housing with a simple button at the bottom of the mouse. We'll never know, and that's more wishful thinking anyway. PWNAGE does include two different sets of DPI buttons, which are 3mm and 5mm in height respectively. If you're like me and sometimes hit the DPI button while gaming, you have the option to either rebind the button to a different action like a master mute, or just disable it altogether. On the left side are the two large buttons. They both have a nice soft click with only a slight pre and post travel. The back button has a tiny bit more post travel though. Their size and location make it easy to reach during gameplay and desktop use. There are no buttons on the right side. Moving towards the back, you'll see the PWNAGE logo shine through the holes and an RGB strip that lines the lower back. It's your typical RGB lighting, so it looks nice in darker areas, and it will obviously leak through the body even with a solid shell on top. It's not too intense, thankfully, so you won't be blinded or distracted by it. A neat feature they included is the ability for the RGB to instantly turn off while the mouse is moving, and then back on when sitting still. You don't look at the mouse when playing anyway, so it's definitely a nice feature to help save battery, even if it's only a little bit. Flipping over to the bottom, you'll see the continued honeycomb design along with a 3-way power switch, sensor, and PTFE skates. The mouse has 3 power modes. Sliding it down powers it on into game mode with full RGB, while sliding it up sets the mouse into office mode, which turns off the RGB, thereby granting you better battery life, and placing the switch in the middle powers off the mouse. Again, being nitpicky here, but I kinda wanted to see the off position be at either the top or bottom instead of in the middle. Ideally for me, it would be game mode up top, office mode in the middle, and off at the bottom. Also, I think it would have been great if there was some kind of text or colored dot indicators so that you know what mode you're in. Not a deal breaker whatsoever. Okay, so last time I talked about mouse skates, I was praising the Viper Ultimate stock skates and saying how they were really good. Well, in comes PWNAGE with their own skates, and they are now the new #1 to beat as far as stock skates are concerned. These things are thicker than normal and appear noticeably harder too. The glide on my cloth mouse pad feels super smooth and effortless. I'm not saying that the Viper Ultimate skates were bad by any means, I'm just saying that the Ultra Custom has better, thicker skates that are just as smooth, if not smoother. I have no indication on their durability over time, which may vary greatly depending on the type of mouse pad being used. As of this review, I don't believe you can get replacement skates anywhere but from the PWNAGE website. They offer skates for only $4, which is a lot cheaper than the popular CorePad, Tiger Arc, or Hyperglide options. Just something to keep in mind. That is all you'll find on this mouse. It's a straightforward, if somewhat boring design with not many frills. To me, it's not very visually appealing, and even with different shell options, it still won't dethrone my current best design winner, the G Pro Wireless. But enough about looks, let's get into the performance of the Ultra Custom. The Ultra Custom is equipped with PixArt's PAW3335 optical sensor, which is said to be very power efficient and plays well with wireless mice. Here are a few technical tidbits. It has a tracking speed of 400 inches per second and acceleration force of 40 Gs. The sensor can be set at 100 level intervals starting at 200 DPI all the way up to 16,000 DPI. The liftoff distance is set to either 1 or 2 millimeters. I can't give you the exact number, but my guess is that PWNAGE set theirs to 1 millimeter. When testing the liftoff, I was getting consistent results with no issues ever arising. You will not find any smoothing, acceleration, or filtering from this sensor. In simple terms, this sensor has great performance and uses very little power. I also went ahead and checked for sensor rattle, and there was absolutely no cursor movement whatsoever. To compare, my Viper Ultimate had a decent side-to-side wobble of a few millimeters. Take this how you will, but I figured I'd mention it in the review. In terms of real-world use, I do pretty well in Warzone where you need to have quick reaction times. Playing at 600 DPI, the tracking feels very consistent and accurate even during fast flicks. I haven't experienced any hiccups or spinouts. I will say that it doesn't feel as responsive as a Viper Ultimate sensor, which I consider to be the best I've tried. But that's not to say that the 3335 isn't a top-notch sensor, or that there are any noticeable delays or anything of the sort. Outfitted with a pair of fairly standard Omron switches rated at 20 million clicks, the main clicks do the job and do it well. Now let's talk about an issue I started noticing recently and how I fixed it. At times my left click would appear lighter and quieter than the right click, and from time to time I would sense a subtle, crunch-like, almost mushy feeling as if there was sand causing friction when pressing down on the button. The right button has had a consistent, tactile, and snappy feedback the entire time, and when pressed down all the way, you feel it come to a complete stop. After coming to a complete stop with the left one, you still have this extra bit of movement after the switch has been actuated. I wear a headset while gaming, and I would find myself pausing for a split second at times because the left click didn't feel right. I wouldn't get that assuring, tactile, snappy click that I'm used to, and it threw me off. In a game that demands concentration, this small distraction can lead to poor performance, and that's not acceptable in my opinion. Fortunately, after doing a few experiments, I came up with a simple solution. Turns out that the issue I was having was due to the left leg being ever so slightly shorter than the right leg. This is what caused the sensation I mentioned earlier. The solution was to cut out and layer 2 small pieces of painter's tape to go underneath the leg. This essentially canceled the pre-travel, and the post-travel has been drastically reduced or even canceled depending on where you press the button. Both clicks are now consistent with each other and they feel great. I'm not sure how long this will last, but so far it's been working beautifully, and it's a simple enough fix to where I can redo it if I need it. This actually makes me wonder if something similar was happening with my Viper Ultimate. I'd also like to note that the switches don't line up with each other. The left is higher up on the PCB when compared to the right. You'll also notice that the support beam that helps stop button wobble appears to stick out further on the right side, and I think this is due to the slight offset of the switches. All of these measurements are incredibly small, but they can add up to a bigger, more noticeable issue. I will add that if the Ultra Custom didn't have the ability to easily remove the button shell and therefore allow for this easy fix, I would definitely make a bigger deal about this small annoyance. But because it was an easy fix that anyone can do without the need for tools, I am willing to overlook it and not make a big fuss about it. Additionally, there's also the very real possibility that my issue is unique and newer batches don't have this problem. The Ultra Custom can also be ultra lightweight. It has the potential to weigh as little as 58 grams when in wired mode with the battery and top shell removed. This is only optimal for fingertip grip users though, but it's good to know that you can make it this light. Out of the box, the mouse weighs just 70 grams, which is 4 grams lighter than the Viper Ultimate. Replace a honeycomb shell with a solid one and you'll only add on an extra 3 grams, still beating out Razer's flagship mouse. This translates well when put to the test in games where flicking and tracking are essential, as both are effortless and the mouse feels like an extension of your arm after you've gotten used to the weight or lack thereof. This may even be in the top spot for the lightest wireless gaming mouse currently on the market. With that said, there's not much else to add here that you probably haven't already heard or know about lightweight mice. The Ultra Custom includes a 5V battery rated at 100 mA. For comparison, the G Pro Wireless is rated at the same voltage but with a higher 500 mA rating. They do use different sensors with different power consumptions though, so don't let that scare you away. The battery, which is held in place by a magnet, can be removed altogether, and you could run the mouse in full wired mode if you wanted to go that route. Being easily accessible and removable allows you to swap out the battery with another one down the road if your current one is no longer holding a full charge. It's not something you'll likely have to do, but it is comforting knowing that the option is there. PWNAGE states that the mouse will last 66 hours in office mode and 44 hours in gaming mode. Half of that claim is true in my case. The battery is great when all RGB is turned off and I'm gaming with it, but when the RGB is turned on, it's a completely different story. I unboxed the mouse at 6:30 AM on the 30th of May and started using it right away with a 90% charge and all RGB turned off, which I did because I wanted to see how far I could push it out of the box before it died. My usage consisted of 5 to 6 days a week and somewhere between 4 to 6 hours of daily use, with a couple of days where I forgot to turn it off overnight. At the time of writing this review, it has been 11 days and the mouse is currently sitting at 30%. At 20%, the scroll wheel started flashing red to let me know it's time to recharge. This seems to happen even if you have all RGB turned off, which is actually a nice feature. Around 9 AM on June 9th, the mouse reached 10% battery and finally turned off on me. I did manage to power cycle it and get it to turn back on, but it struggled to stay on after that. If I had been on top of turning the mouse off when not in use, I probably could have had a few more hours of battery life. Using the mouse with full RGB on gave me considerably less battery life. I began with a full charge at 8:15 a.m. on June 12th, and on June 15th at 8:23 a.m. the mouse started flashing red, signaling it needed to be charged. To be transparent, most of this time was spent with the mouse being idle. I did not play any games during this period and only used the mouse for browsing. When sitting idle, the RGB will turn off after almost exactly 9 minutes and 48 seconds, which I found strange. If there's an option to change this seemingly random number, I have yet to find it anywhere. I would prefer if this time was cut in half, or if there was an option to set your own timer. Even after the battery is fully depleted, plugging the mouse in will send it into wired mode, allowing you to continue using it while the battery charges. You will get a yellow flashing light from the scroll wheel when charging, which then changes to green to indicate a full charge. Charging is done using the super light paracord USB-C to USB-A charging cable. The cable is 2 meters or 6.5 feet in length, with the white variant having a pattern woven into the paracord, giving it a little bit of extra flair. PWNAGE claims on their site that it only takes 1 hour to fully charge, and I can confirm that that is accurate. I started charging at 9:08 a.m. and I was at a full charge by 10:07 a.m. I have done this a few times since, and it is consistently done within 1 hour. In general, I do think the battery life is good, and thanks to the relatively quick charging time of 1 hour, you can be back on the action sooner or never even leave it by going into wired mode. Taking a look over at the software will reveal a simple, no-frills program with the most basic settings one would expect. You have 4 main tabs at the top: Main, Advanced, Macro, and Lighting. Starting with the main tab, here's where you can reassign all your buttons, adjust the polling rate, and view your battery percentage. In the Advanced tab, you get access to the DPI settings, which include its RGB effects. On the right side, you'll see 3 settings that can all be adjusted: mouse sensitivity, scrolling speed, and double click speed. I suggest leaving these alone and unchecking the mouse sensitivity box. The Macro tab is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not knowledgeable enough to talk about macros, but from messing around with the settings, there didn't appear to be very many options available as far as actions that can be assigned. And finally, you have the Lighting tab, which, as you probably guessed, is where you can fiddle with all the RGB settings, including brightness and speed. Here you can select from one of 3 RGB effects: steady, respiration, and streaming. The streaming setting is the only one that actually cycles through the spectrum, whereas the steady and respiration effects are static, one-color options. You have the option to use the predefined colors or input your own RGB value for a custom color. I kind of feel like the DPI RGB settings should have been in this tab instead. Also available are the options to select one of 5 different profiles, and also the ability to import and export profiles. Right now I have 2 that I use, one with all RGB off and one with all RGB on. There is no way of switching profiles outside of the program that I currently know of. Even though it's not cluttered by any means, to me the main and advanced tabs should have been combined into one, and the macro tab could have been hidden away into the drop-down menu at the top right. To summarize, I would put the PWNAGE Ultra Custom up there among the other great wireless mice on the market today. It can easily compete with both the G Pro Wireless and the Viper Ultimate, and even goes as far as surpassing them in a few areas. It won't win any beauty pageants, but that is subjective, and it performs better than it looks anyways, which is what matters. The ergonomic shape means left-handers won't be able to enjoy this new entry by PWNAGE, but on the other hand, it is a comfortable, super lightweight, and solid mouse with a powerful, efficient sensor, spectacular PTFE feet, and customization. In my opinion, the Ultra Custom is a steal for the current asking price of $89, and, small annoyances aside, an investment that I can recommend without hesitation. Keep in mind that PWNAGE currently has a mouse set at a discounted price, with the suggested MSRP being set at $149.99, putting it in line with the other top wireless mice, so you'll want to snag one now at the current discounted price. Well, that wraps it up for this review. I'd love to have a conversation with you down in the comments, so let me know what you think, or just leave a like on the video so that I know you want more of these reviews. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.